there's no difference in strategies because the SEO has 3 pillars in order to get it to rank. There's one thing that people often forget, and I keep reminding people about this. Use it as an example, how you should control your backlinks and not just go for virality for the virality's sake. It going viral actually did not help its rankings. Don't do one SEO strategy for each market. I'm a big fan of exact match anchors and keyword rich anchors. When you look at relevance, there are 3 things that you need to consider. If you look at it from a purely SEO perspective, they're actually great.
Yeah.
If you look at it from another perspective, it might actually not be the best place to get a backlink. You should avoid websites that are controversial. There is a huge checklist of that SEOs have in order to build reputation and trust. Some markets have PPC that kind of takes away the SERP real estate. Those are the keywords that regulated affiliates don't go after. There's going to be a couple of very good key players that have built their brands over the years that are going to become like a one-stop shop.
Hello, today we're meeting in the beautiful city of Manchester. And I wanted to ask you, do you have any premium domains to sell? At Odys, we are selling 86% of our inventory to over 40,000 verified buyers, and most of it are instant sales. We handle appraisals, brokerage, and everything. So join our marketplace today. Hi, this is Odys Podcast. My guest today is Maja Jovančević, who's an iGaming expert and published author and speaker. And I'm very excited because we're talking today about SEO in regulated markets. Thank you so much, Maja, for coming.
Thank you for the invitation, and lovely to see you in person.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to. Thank you. So could you tell us, how do you shape your approach to regulated markets compared to more open verticals?
Oh, that is such a good question. I think like when you look at this as an affiliate, you have certain constraints that you have to abide by. And those are the things that you usually just learn from the regulator itself. And then once that is settled, it's pretty much just basic SEO from then onwards. But in some markets, there are some things that they'll make your job a little bit harder. In some markets, there are some things that are going to make your job a little bit easier. All in all, regulated markets are very, very, very interesting because if a market has been, for example, let's say take the Netherlands as an example, it was unregulated and then all of a sudden it became regulated. The SERPs were pretty much clean. And then it's like, it's a fresh start to go and rank again. So that is, it's super interesting.
That's the very interesting case when that happens, right?
Yeah. You're like, okay, we have the websites, but then you have to clean them up, like from the reviews of the brands that didn't get the license, or you have to restructure them again and do everything. And the operator and the regulator, they're trying to ban those that are not promoting the regulated operators. So it's super interesting.
Are there any other ones that you may know of will become regulated, or that's like unknown?
I mean, there are talks about Norway and Finland.
Okay.
So they are saying anytime now. And also Germany, even though it is kind of regulated, it's anytime now when they start enforcing it. So it's super interesting to follow this, how the governments react, because not every government is giving up too much of its attention to gambling. Some of them have different issues, different problems, and some of them don't see gambling as an opportunity to kind of gain more taxes and more stability for their country. They see it as a vice, and they don't really want to regulate it. They want to just ban it. So it's pretty much from a country to a country. It depends. Very SEO response.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we heard it before in the interviews that I had today.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise, exactly. Typical SEO conversation. So, what are the biggest constraints that SEOs face when working in regulated markets for gambling?
Yeah, I think like if I look at myself particularly, I wouldn't say that there are any huge ones, except like there are some keywords that obviously have like huge search volumes that you don't go after. You know, like in the UK, since we're in the UK, it would be like non-GameStop casinos or something like that. So those are the keywords that regulated affiliates don't go after, but like somebody can. And apart from that, like some of the regulators, they come up with like a specific language that you can and you can't use, and also certain offers that you can and can't display on your website. For example, in Ontario, not mentioning bonus is a little bit difficult if you want to rank for bonus keywords. But I think like the only constraints would be tied to the country itself. Other than that, it's just SEO as normal.
So, how do you balance ranking with strict compliance requirements? For example, like mandatory disclaimers, affiliate disclosures, or like advertising constraints?
I think like affiliate disclosures and everything else that you've mentioned actually are not bad. And for quite some time, we've seen a little bit of a boost in trustworthiness if you kind of implement an affiliate disclosure on your website. It doesn't help you rank a lot, but it kind of gives that aura of trust that the user has once they reach your website. Other than that, I think like everything else is just normal stuff. Normal stuff as SEO. You just follow the rules, and that's it.
Yeah. So with regulated markets, the legal constraints are a big deal. How do you make sure that your content writers understand both SEO and the regulatory requirements?
Absolutely. So there has to be strict training for any content writer that is there, and also there also has to be editorial responsibility from the actual website and the people working on the website to make sure that all the content that you put out is actually working, is compliant. Very often, operators have their own tools. One of the tools is obviously SiteB, and there are others as well. They use it to kind of audit how they appear on the affiliate's website, and they reach out and they request some changes. But all in all, you have to you look at what's permissible, and you display content based on that. It doesn't really affect the rankings. It usually is just a welcomed addition. But I think that's the best way to do it. So training the staff right from the start, making sure that they understand what we're doing, how we're doing it, and that everything is done like from the bottom up. And then the overview, the editorial staff shouldn't have a lot of things to oversee. If you are a legitimate or regulated affiliate, those processes are probably ingrained like from the start.
And do these content writers work usually for one regulatory market, or they work for different ones?
It really depends, because you can have German writers working for Germany.
Okay.
You can have them you can also have them writing Austrian content. So like the content is going to be different from one country to another. And obviously like English speaking, it's going to be different from one country to another.
Exactly. And different requirements as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So usually you try not to mix them. But if you do, there always has to be an extra pair of eyes just looking over the content and making sure it's compliant.
Cool. So are there any tools or workflows that you would recommend for auditing content in regulated markets, like to make sure it both satisfies the legal compliance and SEO requirements?
Gen2 Media has a really nice website called, a really nice tool called Site B. It's a really good compliant tool that helps operators make sure how they're displayed on the affiliates' websites. Other than that, I haven't researched in other markets just because it's fairly simple to do that with Screaming Frog. You can just like program the Screaming Frog, make certain exclusions, get it to crawl and figure out like if there is anything that you need to do. But you do have to know the regulations. You do have to know the tools, etc. So like for us SEOs, it's easy to do something like that.
Okay. Yeah. And I was wondering, how does your strategy differ when you work in regulated markets, but some of them are like more regulated than others, right? Like for example, Italy or Sweden compared to more loosely regulated like Norway or Latin American regions?
Fair enough. That's a really, really good question. In short, the answer is there's no difference in strategies because the SEO has 3 pillars in order to get it to rank. You need to have really good content that converts. You need to have great technical behind the website, and there's obviously the backlinks. So I have very much simplified this. There are so many nooks and crannies that you need to polish out in terms of for the website to kind of function really well. However, what I was aiming to say is that other than us SEOs, we are looking into the holistic website as itself. We look at everything. We look at content, we look at design, we look at the tech, we look at backlinks, we look at the website's reputation offline and online, and we try to do the best that we can. In terms of regulated versus unregulated markets, there are differences in keywords. There are differences in operators that you promote. Some of the operators have huge search volumes because they're regulated. And that, I think, is very interesting to see in Italy because some of the operators there, they have enormous search volumes, so much so that if you drop from position 1 to position 2, it looks really, really, really scary on Ahrefs. But you've just dropped one position, but the search volume is so huge that their tool is just like looking at it as a really, really amazing drop. So it does depend from each market to another. As reputable affiliates, they always try to get the best deals and the best content for their visitors. So I would say that is the minimum. So like the functional website with the best content, that is the minimum. All the SEO nooks and crannies need to be polished out, and the keywords are the difference, and obviously like compliance requests that comes from the operator itself, and those would be the things that you take into consideration. Sometimes if you are told not to advertise in a certain way and to not mention certain keywords, it can mess a little bit with like topical authority. But we try to get the best that we can.
Okay. So what's your take on localization versus translation when entering new markets? Because a lot of people say that you should create the location-specific content. Is that true?
I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. I think translation is quicker. However, it really depends on something. I mean, there were some really crazy examples when people just steal content from other websites, and then you have a review in Japanese that say this because accept Italian players.
Wow.
because it was just stolen and it was
Yes.
just translated, you know,
Yes,
to a
yes.
language. So
Yeah.
obviously, this is not the use case that you asked about, but I'm definitely for localizations because you are reviewing the casinos.
Yeah.
So there are some local things that the casino is doing to attract its players, and those things should be in the review. So I'm definitely all for localization.
Okay. So what is like the most overlooked challenge when you're trying to scale SEO across multiple regulated markets, like from single domain or a platform?
I think the most overlooked challenge would be the difference in the SEOs that it takes to win certain markets, because not every market is the same.
Okay.
Not every market is easy. Not every market is difficult. Some markets are very saturated. Some markets have like very expanded. Some markets have PPC that kind of takes away the SERP real estate from us as well.
Yeah.
So there are things that you need to take into consideration when going for these markets, and those are all the things that you have to account for when doing SEO for those markets. I would say don't do one SEO strategy for each market.
Okay.
Rather adjust it based on what is working for that market. Don't be a one-trick pony, be an adjustable SEO. Figure out what's working in each market. Figure out what you can do to rank your website and do it because that's our job. That's what we need to do.
And what's the role of H domains in regulated markets?
We've seen a lot of very good websites come from H domains.
Okay.
For example, a very known affiliate website, Time to Play, is an H domain. And I'm sure that there are multiple others. And it's very possible to take an H domain, change it, use its power for SEO, and then completely revamp it and relive it.
Yeah.
You might need to contact John Mueller at some point, but but you know, it is what it is. It is possible. It depends.
Yeah.
And I'm very sorry to say that as an SEO, but H domains are a thing for sure. And if you use them properly, they're also very much usable in the regulated markets as well.
Okay.
Especially if it was an affiliate website that somebody didn't have a lot of investment in, and you think it's a good website, you can take it, you can redevelop it, and you can grow it further. That's very much possible.
So how do you build EAT in such niche like gambling or iGaming that is inherently low in trust?
That is actually a very good question. I think once you have regulated markets, that means that the government is behind it. So there is an inherent trust in the operators operating legally in that market. So the affiliates on that end, they have their own trust that they need to gain with the players. And it depends on the specific country and how they approach trust as a nation. Do they blindly trust? Do they find a website that they like and always come back to it? Or are they just going for the first Google results? You have to take like the psychology of the people there because, for example, let's take Brazil. Brazil is a country where people would prefer to pay with cash and just bet with cash.
Okay.
So like to get them to change behavior to online gambling, it wasn't difficult, but it took some time.
Yes.
So, and then you have the markets such as UK where people are more than comfortable paying online and playing online. And that is something that needs to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, like the cultural practices, right? That you need to
Exactly.
take into account.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're working in a market that has a little bit of like low trust and
Yeah.
everything, you would need to build that with the people that visit your website. That means links that work, pages that load swiftly, everything so the tech needs to be really, really top notch. People often forget about these things, but like if you're an affiliate website, if people click on the website, they need to land on the page that you're sending them. It can't be some different page.
Yeah.
So like those sort of things should not be overlooked. The content should be in the language. The grammar should be really good. I'm Serbian. I've seen some websites targeting Serbia with the grammar that was atrocious. I don't know how they plan to get Serbian players.
Yeah.
Let's see. But all in all, the language should be very moderated, and it should be grammatically correct.
Yes, that's a big red flag.
It is it's a big red flag. Yeah. And apart from that, if you can get, let's say, since we're talking about EAT, if you can get some local newspapers to quote your website as a source of relevant information, it is something that kind of pops up when people start searching for the website itself. So it is possible to build an offline or like off website reputation that way as well. So there is a huge checklist that SEOs have in order to build reputation and trust. But like I think like those first things, couple of things that I've mentioned, great grammar, technical website that works, and just basically making sure that everything, once they land on your website, that you do what you say you will do. That is actually the first step.
Yeah, and I imagine, as you said, it takes time to change people's habits, and this is like very difficult period where I guess security is super important. So any kind of breaches can cut that trust, right, and diminish your effort entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. You're very spot on there. And the websites do get attacked with negative SEO, so that is something that gets weakened. But luckily, I think like all the biggest affiliates, they have pretty strong dev and DevOps teams behind them, and that is something that they are taking care of. So hopefully, fingers crossed, everything works out really well.
So can you talk about the role of responsible gambling content and how would you weave it into site without like hurting rankings?
Wow, okay. Technically, if you look at the affiliate website, responsible gambling is something that is a cluster in itself. It's like terms and conditions and those sort of things that you have on the website. These are not money pages. These are more informational pages. And it's very important in the industry, so much so that we have awards for affiliates that excel in responsible gambling as well. So these things are important for the websites. They can enhance the website's EAT, and they provide really, really useful information to the players as well. So they are not the pages that usually convert people to play. They're there for a very different reason. They're there to kind of explain to people how to gamble responsibly. Because ultimately we want people to have fun while gambling. We don't want them to go in a different direction, let's say. So responsible gambling, I think, is very important. It's part of the EAT. It can only enhance the rankings. However, it's the money pages that we're trying to push. And on those pages, like responsible gambling is probably just like a disclosure or like a note or something like that that's mandated.
I see. And can we talk about link building? How do strategies look like in regulated markets? where outreach can be somewhat restricted?
It's actually the sad truth about link building in the gambling industry is that nobody wants to link to a casino website.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you do outreach, you really, if you're doing organic outreach, you really need to think outside the box, because it's not impossible. I always give this example of Pornhub, which is an amazing website in the adult affiliation, and they do really, really, really well in terms of link building, just because they create a lot of viral moments. However, in the normal gambling space, you can do outreach. You can purchase links.
Yes.
Not saying we do, but you can purchase links. There are people who have their private blog networks as well. There are so many things. I think all the SEOs know what I'm talking about. I'm not here discovering any new information. But the good thing about it is that if the gambling is regulated, it's very easy to get into high authority domains, such as newspapers. And you can build links from those newspapers with E18 in mind. And that's always a good thing.
And are there any types of particular backlinks that you should avoid due to legal constraints?
So I think looking at it, first of all, you have to follow all the SEO rules. The best backlinks are relevant backlinks. And then if you can't have relevancy in terms of topical, then at least it has to be either language or like regular relevancy, like from a newspaper. That is, for me, the backlink that will work the best. The domain that will work the best when sending a backlink to you. The ones you should avoid are probably from the websites that, even though they have a great, and this is my personal opinion, other SEOs are very free to ignore it. You should avoid websites that are controversial. It's my personal opinion, and if here's what I'm like, probably those are the websites that are going to link to you. Probably they have huge visits. Probably, like, if you look at it from a purely SEO perspective, they're actually great.
Yeah.
If you look at it from another perspective, it might actually not be the best place to get a backlink. Yeah. And also, you have to also look into whether, especially if you're building to a review page, and then you're mentioning the brand on those websites. So, like, that is something I would personally avoid.
And what are the dangers associated with those controversial websites?
There aren't many dangers per se. Like, the operator might not like if they're mentioned on a specific website. That will probably be the only danger that might happen. I'm not saying people have done it, but I've seen it being done. And I think, like, just because, like, topically they're so not relevant to what you do, and we all know that backlinking sometimes can be a stretch in terms of relevancy.
Yeah.
But those would be the ones that I would advise people to avoid. They are free to ignore me.
So can you tell us about relevance and how to build strategies around it?
So I think, like, when you look at relevance, there are three things that you need to consider. First of all, the domain and how relevant it is to your website. Then the actual URL and the content of the article or in which the link has been posted. And we're talking here about guest post links. And the third thing would be obviously the anchor text. So, like, if you have the trifecta, perfect. If you don't have the trifecta, ideally you get at least two. If you get only one, it might not be as strong as you would like it to be. There are so many case studies based on that. And I think like all of the SEOs have done their work before that. And I think it's very easy to spot. I'm a big fan. This is very market specific. It doesn't work in every market. I'm a big fan of exact match anchors and keyword rich anchors.
Okay.
I've seen it work. I like it. I try not to overdo it. Not everybody needs to follow me.
Yeah. How do you find the right balance to not overdo it?
I would say it's experience.
Okay.
Because you have to understand how natural link building occurs. What you are trying not to do is you do not want to alert Google that you've been doing something fishy. So you need to monitor how the natural link building occurs. And I think like that is the best way to do this is like to see a website that like went viral and got like thousands of links and see like how people are linking to the website and like how are they linking, which pages they're choosing and which anchor text they're doing, etc. So like the most natural way to link build is the brand. So the URL, naked URL, etc. to all of your pages. And then if you can find a way to make it look natural and then still boost it with exact match or keyword rich anchors, that is actually something that could really work. Depending on the market, like it's so market specific, backlinking is an art.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to talk about the dead NFT campaign that you were behind. It's such an interesting case, and you presented a case study at Brighton SEO. Could you tell us, like, what was the core message that you wanted people to take away from that case study?
Yes, it was actually a super interesting case study. The lecture is a very short lecture. It's available on YouTube. And I analyzed, and I think it was like the most boring title of the presentation ever, just because I was so unimaginative at that time. But the title of the presentation was "What happens to your website after you go viral?" And then they put me in the content section, but technically I was talking about backlinks. And the funny story about this website is that it went crazy viral. If you all remember, in 2023, I think, there was this huge talk about how NFTs are practically worthless. And there were stats being cited. We were behind that content and we went completely viral. We got so many links. And I think that was the excellent example of like how natural link building works. Because we got the links to a couple of pages, the About Us page, the homepage, mostly the homepage, and the Dead NFT page. And the thing about this is that the website wasn't about NFTs. It was just a crypto affiliate. And it going viral actually did not help its rankings. The website was ranking pretty decently. And then after it went viral and started getting an insane amount of links, I had Google alerts. It was like every single hour, like I've got an email like with it was so viral. It went across the countries. It was translated. They were talking about the website in multiple countries. And most of it was mentions. We tried to turn them into links, but it was crazy. And ultimately, it didn't help the website rank for its intended keywords in the crypto world. And the Dead NFTs page also didn't rank highly either. So it was just an amazing case study. And I still get messages on LinkedIn about people who have experienced very similar things. And they were like, hey, do you have any suggestions? And I've also had like chats with SEOs about, like how we should solve it, etc. It was a really, really interesting case study. I would say like the amount of buzz it gotten in the SEO world and the amount of people that wanted to talk about this it was really high, and a lot of also backlinking agencies used it as an example of like, like how you should control your backlinks and not just go for virality for the virality's sake.
Yeah.
It was pretty much a huge it was a huge thing in the world, in the SEO world.
I guess it shows the importance of relevancy, right?
Exactly. Because I did a small analysis at Brighton SEO and in-depth one at a conference called Icon in Cyprus.
Yeah.
And I analyzed it. And ultimately, when I looked at the website, I realized that once you get a huge surge of links on a certain topic, your website becomes about that topic.
Yeah,
And
it kind
you-
of switches, right?
Exactly. So my personal theory was that the whole backlinks and everything about NFTs just shifted the
Yeah.
context of our website from crypto website to an NFT website.
Yes, exactly.
And the NFT was just one page, and it wasn't like the most visited content. It wasn't the best ranking content, but it was the most linked to content, and it was interesting.
So it kind of outweighed the written content in it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
very
It is.
interesting.
SEO is like, I feel like every SEO around here, we're just like chemists. A little bit of this, a little bit of this, a touch of this, a pinch of this, etc. It's like shake it around. Is it working?
So,
Have you explored it yet, or is it doing okay?
so I heard that you're like a pro when it comes to saving websites. How is
No.
that website going? Like, have you worked on it and trying to help it come back?
I actually thank you for that. That's a lovely compliment. I don't know if I'm a pro. I just like to look at I just like to figure algorithms, and I just like to figure out what's wrong and to fix it.
Yeah.
I think like my personality is like I'm a fixer, so like I do that in personal life as well. So like I love the detective work. I find it like if a website goes down, like some SEOs are like, I will just try it to another domain, we'll redirect. I was like, no, let me figure it out. Let me see if there's something we can do about it. And I've used so many methods to try and figure out, like, is it the intent? Is it the backlinks? Is it the tech? What's wrong? Like, are we doing everything in structure? Is it internal linking? Everything. I pretty much look at the hood. So I think like if every SEO would do that, if they had time, for me, it's the most rewarding work there is. I am an SEO through and through.
Nice. So, how do you actually weigh the value of press coverage, like social virality, influencer mentions, if they don't directly help the money pages? What's your take on that?
I am gonna roll back to like a very, very old blog post by Backlinko where they listed all the ranking signals. And even though like the mentions and all of the things that we have mentioned, they're not considered direct ranking signals. They are considered part of the branding signals that Google considers when looking at your websites. And it's also an extra plus if your website is being evaluated by Google's monitors, the EAT team. So I think they're actually very important, especially if they happen organically. Especially if you're cited as a very valuable source, or like if people are talking about you, or if they're mentioning the brand, like it's pretty much brand signals. And I think those are very important. They can be built, they can be encouraged. And I think like there's a lot of SEOs who have built their own personal brand based on basically boosting the branding signals and giving those signals to Google, because branding what we think about it and branding what the SEOs consider branding, they're a little bit separated. And I think like all the mentions on the web are actually very positive for your website.
So, what do you think is in the future of gambling SEO in regulated markets?
Oof. Right now, the future of SEO is very tough to predict.
Yeah.
And I am loving everything that's happening. It is just so interesting. I would say, if I had to bet on something safe, I would say it will happen the same way it happened with other industries. There's going to be a couple of very good key players that have built their brands over the years that are going to become like a one-stop shop. Like, for example, if you look at, we're at a hotel, if you look at Hilton hotels, or if you look at something else, people understand it. People assume a certain level of service. Same with Amazon, same with us. So if you have gambling affiliation, if you have websites who have achieved that status, those websites are probably going to be fine. And other websites, they're probably going to look into a lot of questionable tactics, which in the regulated markets can work, but for how long? And I think it's going to be very interesting to see which markets end up regulating in the future and how they end up regulating, because not every country treats gambling as its priority or as something they can make money of, which is very sure that they can. They don't treat it as priority. They don't think about gambling. They think about some other things. So it's really interesting to see.
And what's the impact of like AI generated content and regulatory tightening on gambling in SEO in regulated markets?
AI generated content, it's not bad. I mean, AI can be trained to write content the way you like it to write content. So if there are people just using plain ChatGPT to write reviews, that is a very noob way of doing it. If you train AI properly to write amazing content, it can actually give you insane results. And obviously you have to have an oversight over that just to make sure that everything is correct, that it's still not hallucinating, because that is difficult to anticipate if AI is going to be hallucinating. You have to make sure the content is correct, trustworthy, and well written. And I think that is, I see AI as a huge help. And I see AI as a really, really amazing tool. But I have to admit, this is the fastest. That, like, even like with the internet, when the whole thing started, like there were years and years of adoption. With AI, it's being super fast. So it's interesting to see how it will all develop.
Yes. Yeah, exciting times ahead of us.
I would say so. Let's say we do a podcast in 5 years.
Yes. We're gonna be, I can't even imagine that. And gambling experience probably would be so different by then, right?
Yeah. Imagine like there is, everybody has their AI and they were like, find me the best offer for this casino or something. I mean, there's one thing that people often forget, and I keep reminding people about this. It's gambling.
Yeah.
It's not like this is travel. It's not like I'm asking AI, hey, can you plan my 2-day trip to Manchester or something? Like, it can do that, but like, this is gambling. It's still very much a taboo topic. And it's still very much something that AI is kind of, like wiggling about, you know. It can recommend casinos, but it doesn't want to, or like it can sometimes, but like you have to wiggle it out. So like
it's a fine line.
Exactly. So like it will be interesting to see what happens with gambling, because I'm sure that AI is going to want to transform the tourism industry.
Yeah.
Obviously, the shopping industry, we've already seen like the changes there as well. Local SEO as well is like being tied to AI that's been using, I think, Bing Maps or something. So it's going to be really interesting to see. But gambling still is a very controversial topic.
Yes.
So, will there be any restrictions on the AI for completely adopting gambling affiliation and acting as a gambling affiliate? We don't know.
Yeah,
It's gonna be interesting to see.
very interesting. So we have to meet in the future to continue.
In 5 years in Manchester.
Yes, exactly.
In these chairs, I hope this hotel is still here.
In Manchester, the masterminders.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Maya, for sharing so much of your experience and knowledge. And
Likewise.
if you enjoyed it as much as I did, please follow Maya on LinkedIn. Don't hesitate to contact her. You can always reach out to me as well. Follow us to get the new episodes and subscribe and like Odys podcast on YouTube.
Definitely. There's some really good knowledge on this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.